Since I can't be there, I've written a few words about each of them. Would you be willing to be my voice and read it for me at the party? You could do it in a Debbie voice, or your own, or ad-lib any way you want to.
Hey Bill, who's this from?
Debbie Twyford.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I don't put a dress on for anybody, but I figured. Make it hard to read, but I'll do what I can.
Hey Bill, you gotta turn around.
That's scary. I prefer the dress. No.
Okay, so this is boy, this is tough. Steve Rhodes is first.
Sit down a little bit. They're running around real fast.
You gotta walk really fast.
There are not many people I can make fun of for being short, but Debbie's on the list.
HR is behind you.
Yeah. As ever, right?
Okay.
Okay, Steve Rhodes. Back in the early days of Team Center in a Box, the new service was struggling to get the software up and running, struggling to figure out what our customers wanted, struggling to set up a service based on what we believed would be a good service overall for Emerson, struggling to get a customer, any customer, implemented. And we were way, and she puts like 5 A's in here, we were way over budget in hosting, and every time we turned around we needed more hardware. Seems like she would stop turning around. Anyway, I remember one Friday afternoon, 4 p.m., Fred Burdell called and told me to meet him in Steve Hassel's office for a 30-minute discussion on Team Center and why we were over budget. Now, I had dinner plans with friends after work, so I thought 30 minutes wouldn't be bad, especially on a Friday night, and I'd be able to make the dinner. Then she says, yeah, right. 30 minutes turned into 3 hours in Steve's office with him yelling about the hosting costs and the fact that we still had no customers and not much hope of getting any. The only good thing that came out of the meeting was the decision to hire someone with a much-needed Team Center and engineering background to work with the business unit and get something put in the box, Team Center in a Box. Next enters Steve Rhodes, unassuming, soft-spoken, and tons of experience. In his easy rider way, he definitely turned his really bad situation around. Not only did we have a box, but we finally had customers. Along the way, we even had some fun. Gonna miss you, Steve. Since I can't wear glasses.
Gonna miss you too, Debbie.
Really big. Pardon me?
Gonna miss you too, Debbie.
I can send her home with you. Okay. John Katz. Where's John go? There you are, John. John and I go way back, lots of A's again, way back to our Motors days together. When we started working together, John was in corporate IT. It had been decided that corporate and Motors needed to leverage, I don't know why she puts that in quotation marks, the talent we jointly had and the assets, including the old second floor data center, the campus PBX, and the desktop support, the LAN and the WAN. Corporate owned the data center and did their own desktop support. Motors supported with both Motors and corporate LAN and had WAN. None of this is making sense to me, but I hope John understands what she's saying here. And they managed the campus PBX. We both had various resources, and it did make sense to join forces to deliver the services to both organizations. Sounds simple, right? Sounds logical, right? Well, simple is not always easy. Our job was to make it happen, and as you can imagine, though it makes sense, it is change and does affect people. The move of the folks to Motors did go well, along with centralizing the services in Motors. We didn't lose any of the corporate folks. Sounds like you thought they'd get killed. And we have John to thank for that. No bad news here. For me, though, I have to say it was a huge win for Motors to have John as part of the group. He's a quiet kind of guy, patient and smart. He made the transition easy and comfortable for his corporate team. And for motors, they gained a strong, steady, dependable person who gets things done. It's been my pleasure to work with you, John. Happy retirement. Then we got Fred. Back in the day, DR was like audits. You didn't talk about them hoping someone would forget about them. But we all knew they were important to do. Frankly, though, DR was an afterthought. It's not to say that we didn't have written procedures, but they really only existed for the test when we had to test. When Fred first joined and started talking DR tests, processes, procedures, annual testing, etc., I remember thinking, yeah, right, we're going to have standardized documented procedures across all the groups. That may happen once, but I'll have to see it to believe it'll be sustained. Well, Fred made a believer out of me, and he aggravated the shit. Oh, pardon me. She put two little asterisk IT. He aggravated the asterisk IT out of me along with his incessant meetings. Before long, however, I realized something absolutely amazing. We were having DR tests. We now had a DR schedule, which never seemed to end, by the way. The procedures across the groups were documented and validated, and then the attestation word appeared. Let's see, the procedures across the groups were, oh yeah. And then the attestation word appeared. I had to look that up because I'd never been asked to attest before, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Fred and his team have made a difference. Today, DR documentation and tests are a part of our services. Given the number of tests we provide across Emerson and the critical nature of many of them, DR testing is no longer an afterthought. And thanks to Fred, I know what attestation is. I'll miss you, Fred, and I'll miss our many discussions. I've always appreciated how you developed ideas by seeking mine and others' input. It has made a difference. Thanks to you, DR is no longer a bad word. You can take Debbie home with you. Your wife doesn't mind.
We have witnesses now.
So I will just say a couple of things for me. Steve Rhodes, when I came to the Team Center service, Mark Prongi was helping me with my transition, as several of you will remember, into the engineering solutions area. And he said to me about Steve Rhodes, Steve is your relationship guy. He's the guy that has built relationships across Emerson. Everybody likes him, everybody respects him, everybody trusts him. That's the guy you need when you get into trouble with your business unit customers. And over this last year and a half or whatever it's been, I have taken full advantage of that. Steve is very good at backing people off of ledges, especially vice presidents of engineering, because he has long-standing relationships with them. They really do trust him, and he does a great job of that. Steve grew Global Team Center from almost nothing, and you heard Debbie talk about that, to now over 3,300 users and still growing. Tremendous job. Anybody would be proud of a record like that. He is the company historian, especially with Global Team Center. I mean, he knows everything that happened and who's guilty. And Reach, oh yes, and then Reach. But everybody's trying to forget about Reach, and I'm sure Steve's no exception. And the other thing that you might not know about Steve is that he was a boy scientist. He actually used, I think it was a Commodore 64, and built a lightning detector when he was a young man. So he actually
still is.
Yeah, well, everything's relative, right? So he would put antenna out in the yard and ran it, the electricity into the house, and actually could calculate how far away every lightning strike was from the electrical pulse to the time the sound appeared. Pretty slick stuff. In the days of the Commodore 64, that was pretty leading edge stuff. So that's what I have to say about Steve. I will miss him. I think all of us will really miss him. Debbie really got taller, didn't she? And then a little bit bit about Fred, and I'll give up because I haven't had the chance to work with John long enough to have any stories about him. I will say this about Fred. Fred was one of the first people I met when I came to Emerson. I literally was in the cubicle across the aisle from Fred, and what a terrific representative of Emerson he is. I mean, really, just one of those guys that you'll like immediately. You can sit down and talk to him about anything, right? Just a terrific guy. Sorry?
I hate his guts.
Oh, do you? I'd say that says more about you than Fred, but okay. He has been the steady hand on the rudder of disaster recovery, which is never any fun. It's one of those things, Debbie's absolutely right, you just hate to see coming. I mean, it's like the IRS, right? But Fred stuck with it through all of us who complained and waffled and didn't want to go to the meetings and didn't want to do the paperwork and just didn't want to. Couldn't have picked a better guy from that. And then I have one last story to tell you about Fred. So Fred and I, once in a while, will still go to lunch together. And so we went to lunch together, and this has been several months ago now. I think it was before Christmas time. And we're sitting at the table, and, you know, just small talk, right? And it's just me and Fred. And I say, so Fred, you ever get any consideration to when you would like to retire? You know, you ever think about that? Because Fred and I are both in a category where you start to say to yourself, now what's the trade-off? How long am I going to be healthy and live after I retire, and how much money do I need to retire? And you're always trying to do this calculation, right? Fred, instead of going there, says to me, why do you ask that? Now I don't know what I've done, you know, I probably really offended this guy. Well, as it turns out, he finally shared with me later that about 3 hours before we went to lunch, he had told Donna he was going to retire. He thought Donna had spilled the beans, but anyway, so that brings us, you know, to this point with Fred retiring for real now. And I'll just say all of you guys are terrific guys. It has been, for me, and my short time, comparatively short time at Emerson, a genuine pleasure to work with all you guys. Okay? Who else? Who's up next?